Hello, everyone. My name is Meagan Abrahamsson, and I am the English language resident for America House in Kyiv, Odessa, and Lviv. I am coming to you today live from Palermo in Italy. And I think maybe Lena was going to say a few words first, and then I can get started with the show, the program for you all today. So I'm very excited to be here, and we'll talk about sustainable project-based service learning very soon.
Thank you, Megan. And it is great pleasure for me to welcome all people today. And I wish you stay safe in these difficult times for our country. So today we start a series of two webinars with Ms. Meagan Abrahamsson, specially designed for TESOL Ukraine. On behalf of TESOL Ukraine, I would like to express my great thanks to all American participants for their solidarity and support of Ukraine. Our wonderful presenter today, Meagan Abrahamsson, is representing, as she has mentioned, the American House in Kyiv, and she will make two webinars for us, which will be held today and in a week, so next Thursday. And we also have Alona Sukhinina participating. She is assistant of the Regional English Language Officer of the U.S. Embassy of Ukraine, Lottie Baker. And I would like to focus on the fact that for many years, we have been maintaining a close partnership with the Regional English Language Office, which supports our association in consulting, financial, and logistical terms. In particular, in partnership with the Regional English Language Office, TESOL Ukraine has held 26 all-Ukrainian conventions, around 50 summer and winter institutes and trainings, 10 forums for young researchers, a great amount of seminars, webinars, and workshops. So we are so much grateful, so much thankful for this cooperation, and we would like to mention also that in the days, the very first days of war, American partners called us and asked what how they can help and what we needed, and expressed their solidarity. And just a few words about the activities of TESOL Ukraine, and namely the recent activities. I believe many of you know what association TESOL Ukraine is, but I will just briefly describe our association and outline the main activities. TESOL Ukraine was founded in 1995, and it embraces around 500 members all around Ukraine now. Among them are teachers, university teachers, secondary school, college English language teachers, private school teachers, and directors, owners. So the mission of TESOL Ukraine is to provide international standards in the sphere of teaching and learning English, advance professional expertise, develops a system of teacher training, networking with professionals in Ukraine and worldwide, and promote new ideas and methods of teaching English. Since the year 2002, TESOL Ukraine has had a very diverse, intensive and deep cooperation with TESOL Hawaii. And Sally LaLuzerne, many of you knows her, is the mediator and intermediate person between our associations. And since the days of the beginning of war, we have signed a contract with TESOL Italy. And we hope for a fruitful cooperation with this association too. So recently we have organized 8 joint webinars with TESOL Italy, and we shared our ideas around our ideas and methods of teaching we are having in Ukraine and in Italy, and 4 webinars with TESOL Hawaii. So our teaching and professional development is our piece of peace in these difficult days for my country. So the floor goes to our wonderful presenter, Meagan Abrahamsson, and maybe Alona, you will introduce Meagan.
Hi, Lena. This is Lottie Baker. I'm the Regional English Language Officer.
Lottie.
I can introduce Meagan. Sorry, I was in another meeting, so I just jumped in just a few minutes late. But thank you for your very warm welcome. And yeah, we agree that it has been wonderful to partner with TESOL Ukraine over the years. And we are very happy to host this event with TESOL Ukraine. So just a little bit about our office. It's the Regional English Language Office, or RELO. Normally, I am based in Kyiv, Ukraine. Right now, I am working from Washington, D.C. And we're delighted to be here with TESOL Ukraine, and then also with Meagan Abrahamsson, who is the English language resident with IREX and America House. So our mission here at the RELO office is to support English language education in Ukraine and in countries across the region. We do this through supporting teachers and training initiatives like this. I have to say, every meeting that I've had with teachers since February 24th, I've been amazed and really inspired at the resilience and the perseverance of teachers and students in the wake of this terrible, unjust war. We at the embassy, we stand with Ukraine. We do this through military and humanitarian assistance, through accountability for war crimes, and also for planning for rebuilding. And part of that rebuilding is supporting teachers and schools. Topics like this one, the one that Meagan will share with us today, project-based service learning. It's so important if we want our Ukrainian youth to develop civic and leadership skills, as well as the ability to communicate meaningfully in English. And we know that these are skills and attributes that are very important in helping rebuild Ukraine for a bright future. So with that, I'll briefly introduce Meagan. As she mentioned, that she is the English language resident for America House, Kyiv, and she is currently working from Palermo, Italy. Meagan is originally from Detroit, Michigan. She has had experience teaching ESL, English Second Language, for the last 10 years in the United States, Honduras, China, Australia, and Italy. Meagan has great experience leading teacher training programs. She was previously a State Department Virtual English Language Fellow, or VELF, so some of you may be familiar with some of our English language fellows. And she worked as a VELF for teachers in North Africa and the Philippines. So with that, I'll thank everyone again for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Meagan. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Lottie, for that wonderful introduction. And Lena, it's so great to be here and helping to support with TESOL Ukraine as well. And so thank you guys all for joining us. To reiterate the comments of the United States and Italy, and just really supporting each other continuously as this terrible war continues to go on. And I think that this is a good presentation to show a little bit how we can make an impact ourselves as teachers and with our students as well. So without further ado, let's get to it. So sustainable project-based service learning is important because usually, I think you are all familiar with this picture of being in the classroom, or maybe now it's changed to be sitting in front of your computer, looking into your camera like we're all doing right now. But the purpose of this project-based service learning is to really transcend the classroom and to be able to get out into the community and working together. So hopefully we'll all be able to do that soon. Just as mentioned from Lottie about myself, basically the same thing, but I can tell you a little bit more. I love learning languages, cultures, cooking, connecting with people. And so it gives me a really great pleasure to be with all of you here today. And I feel very proud to represent the America House. So some objectives for us today are for you all to be able to differentiate between project-based, task-based, and service learning. I know that project-based is not something new. It's been going around for a long time, but I just wanted to circle back to it to let you guys know how you might be able to use it when you are able to implement it in your classrooms. Because in Ukraine, especially, and many places around the world, I think it's always a great idea to get the students out into the community. So with that, we will have a look at some different examples of project-based service learning in real life. We have a special guest as well who will describe her service learning project. And also, we will be able to brainstorm some examples of what you think your community needs, and then finally create a project-based service learning 5-step guide to your own learners, their age, their language level, and then think about what kind of a time frame. So hopefully all of this information is not just going to sit here in your computer, and when you close it, it's going to be over. Hopefully you will be able to get thinking about how you can apply it specifically to your classroom, and it will be sustainable because with project-based learning, once you make it, you can use it over and over again. So that's a really great part about it. So also I would like to mention that if you have any questions or comments, you are definitely welcome to raise your hand or put them in the chat box as we're going along. So we can make it as interactive as possible. Okay. All right, great. So to start us off, we have to be able to understand about what is project-based learning. So there are 6 components to it: the intellectual challenge and accomplishment, the authenticity, public product, collaboration, project management, and the reflection component. So these are the things that connect it to 21st century skills, is because these 21st century skills are important because it means that you are not just teaching your students skills for in the classroom, you're teaching them skills for when they aren't in the classroom anymore, which is really what, you know, the legacy of our jobs are going to be. So if you're excited and you want to hear more, I can tell you a little bit more deeply about what is the intellectual challenge and accomplishment. So first of all, you think about a guiding question. And I will say this again as we go along and we talk more about how to create one of these projects, is that you really have to do backwards planning. And when you are thinking about what kinds of projects that your students should be doing, you have to think, what do I want them to learn? What do I want them to get out of this? You know, how are they going to remember this? And if we link all of these activities and we have this repetition around this topic or around this guiding question, you know that it's just going to be able to sink into the student, and they're really going to be able to learn it much, much better, to learn it in different kinds of ways. So the projects should not just be fun activities or hands-on experiences requiring minimal intellectual effort. So we are in the classroom. The point is to learn. The point is to push ourselves, to strive for something that we can add to our knowledge base. Okay, and it should be authentic. So this means that there should be a little bit of wiggle room when you do assign that project, that the students will be able to adapt it to their interests. So remember, in terms of motivating our students, unfortunately, they're not going to be interested in everything that we're interested in. That's just how the world works. And it's better that way anyways. So they have to be able to think of how they can accomplish this project in a way that's going to be interesting for them. And I will show you some examples of that if you are unfamiliar. And this is going to initiate that internal motivation. So that's what we definitely want to instill in our students. Public product. So it needs to be publicly displayed, discussed, and critiqued. So this is another component of transcending the classroom, because it's not going to just stay in the classroom. Sure, it's important to critique and give feedback when you're in the classroom, but how are you going to take this information out? Who are you going to connect this information with so that it has that community component? Okay. Students collaborate with other students in person, online, or receive guidance. So this is another component, is this collaboration. And the important part about the collaboration is definitely because when we are training or teaching students in our classroom, we are giving them the skills that they will need to learn to be able to work in a community, in a collaborative, collective way. So that's what makes it, connected to learning these skills they're going to need when they are leaving our classroom, is if we practice them inside of the classroom. And they need to have different assigned roles. So for example, one person is going to be the writer, one person is going to be the note taker, another person is going to be the speaker, or maybe everyone is going to divvy it up equally. Really, that's how we are able to learn that we are all, strong in different areas. And if you want to show your strength, you need to work as a team, because we can't just be good at everything, unfortunately, all the time. Project management. So how many times now have you seen job advertisements that say they require project management skills? So luckily, as teachers, and how we can figure it out to create projects in our classrooms, we will be teaching our students these project management skills. And by the time that they leave us, they, will be able to even put that on their resume, because they are practicing that skill in the classroom. So they're going to be able to completely plan their project out from the start to the finish. And that's really such an important skill that you need now for any kind of job, especially this remote working atmosphere and environment. You have to be able to complete these projects within your team, individually, and you might not have somebody, telling you, hey, get to work, but you have to get that project done on time. So we need to learn how to do that and practice it. Another aspect, we all know as teachers how important reflection is, but not even just inside the classroom. As an individual, as a human being, we have to be able to reflect on things. Otherwise, we're not really learning from them, right? So students should be able to reflect on their work and their learning throughout the project. So this is the teacher's job, is to design these reflection or these feedback sessions so that the student can really think, oh, was there another way that I could have done this better? Or did I like how I did this and would I repeat it again? Okay, so next up, I'm going to show a little video. How do we put all of these things together now into one example and explain a little bit more about what is project-based learning and how we can see it in the classroom and how that's being done in the United States. So I'm not sure if you've seen this video before, but Sasha, our amazing tech guru at America House, is going to help me play this video. So while you're watching, I would like you guys to have in the chat box, just type any questions that you have or any kind of feeling that you get from it. If you have any comments or if you have done projects in your classroom before. Yeah, I would really be interested to see that if anyone has already initiated putting project-based learning into their classroom. So yeah, we can start the video now. Thank you.
How will today's children function in a dangerous world? What means will they use to carve the future? Will they be equipped to find the answers to tomorrow's problems?
When you think about traditional learning, you think of a student sitting in a classroom and being talked at.
Now I imagine a lot of you are still thinking.
They are supposed to be a sponge. The teacher tells them information and they suck it up. That's not the real world. Having them actively engaged, learning about things in their community and doing projects that they care about is giving them that ownership of their learning. It's making them lifelong learners. It's giving them the critical thinking and problem-solving skills that they need as soon as they walk out of your classroom into the real world.
So there are a lot of different ways to approach PBL, a lot of different ways to implement it, but really it all boils down to 5 essential keys. Real-world connection, core to learning, structured collaboration, student-driven, and multifaceted assessment. The first key component of PBL is real-world connections. And really what this entails is having an authentic problem that drives the curriculum. So students are given this question, for example, what's in our water and how did it get there? And then the students choose different paths to explore that question.
One of the problems in the ocean is that with the higher amount of CO2, calcifying organisms are decreasing. We're testing to see how well life in the ocean lives without calcifying organisms.
When the students know that what they're doing in a classroom has an audience outside the classroom, it really helps them deepen their thinking on it. I think that is pretty authentic in terms of what the future work world holds.
So the second commonality is the PBL unit provides academic rigor. This is not something that teachers would add at the end of a unit because they learned all the content they're supposed to learn already, and so this is, the fluff that they can do at the end. This is the unit. This is the way that they learn the content.
So what's your standards you're going to be covering?
We're going to do 5A, which is analyzing scenes, and this is huge in this book.
When you can show that you're incorporating the standards, building these projects that aren't fluffed, a lot of eyes and ears open, because people are hungry for that.
Structured collaboration refers to allowing the students to work together, but giving them a structure within which to work.
Our project was to create a aquaponics system, and we had several people working on it. In my case, I was kind of the team leader. Two members of my group who are kind of just like the thinkers that would think, what if we could include this? Once those two came up with the ideas, it would go through another person who was kind of like the designer to figure out, oh, how would we make it? And then it would kind of go up to me and say, and I would kind of be like the final decider.
We would never put 4 kids together at a table and say, here's a task, get it done during this time period. It's very carefully scaffolded.
There's an interesting shift in roles that happens in a PBL unit. The teacher becomes more of a facilitator, and the students take more control.
You guys are the Red Cross responders. You already looked at news broadcasts, and you took down some notices and wonderings. You need to take all of this, and you need to bring it together.
So I have to write down the aspects of a news broadcast?
You got it, exactly. So Qasim's got it. Qasim can give you some ideas on how to start.
But as a facilitator, the teacher needs to be able to ask good questions. She needs to redirect if necessary, give hints but not answers. And that's really an interesting role for teachers to learn how to do. Multifaceted assessment refers to assessment being integrated throughout the entire PBL unit.
I do a lot of formative assessments. It's not a test at the end of the week or the end of a unit. You're doing a lot of small check-ins with the students to see where they're at and to see that they're growing along. I think it's really important to also make sure that the students are assessing themselves.
It's a process that we are really trying to bring back again to the student so that kids are part of the assessment process and that assessment is just not being done to them.
Our students would blossom under this approach. They learn that they have voice and choice, and teachers would probably, in the end, find it easier and more fulfilling. We'd probably have a whole lot less burnout. I mean, this is really an exciting way of teaching.
What we've done for the last 100 years direct teaching, for some students it works, but for most students it doesn't. So for us, project-based instruction is a way that we can reach all students and get them engaged.
Right now, my favorite project is called Create Your Own Project.
My favorite project this year was in chemistry, and what it was about, we were using chemistry and reactions to create a soda.
It's a video production class, and we're making a kids show. We're calling it the Dojo Show.
We're learning about spatial diffusion, Black Death, the Columbian Exchange.
Reactions like double replacement, combustion, things like that.
We're basically the teachers in this, so we're gonna create a rubric, our group contracts, and we're gonna launch this project to our class.
We're learning how to collaborate and also work towards a creative goal. It helps us get into that creative mindset that really is something that's hard to find in any other high school.
Okay, thank you guys for watching that video, and I really like seeing your questions in the chat box. That is an interesting thing to think about, is students who prefer to work individually. I mean, yeah, they might be able to work individually on what they're working on as their part of the group. I mean, so it's kind of an interesting way, but yeah, for project-based, of course they need to learn how to collaborate, but the other thing is you don't have to do project-based learning all the time. It doesn't mean that just because you are trying project-based learning, you have to go from project to project to project. No, that's not necessary. You can just do it, for a couple months, for a month, or, you can really adjust the time based on your need. So thank you for your questions. So now we're going to watch another video of another example about students learning about revolution. And while we're watching, I would like you guys be thinking about these questions. So who did the students work with? What was the idea? What did they discover? How did they communicate that information? What skills were gained? And how have the groups assessed their learning to help the others on their journey? Okay, so keep these questions in mind while we're watching. And then we'll be able to learn a little bit more about how we might be able to set this up in our classrooms. Because for example, when the students are doing project-based learning, they need to be able to get into it so that they're interested, right, with the motivation. And so I think that we all need to pay attention to, you know, as English teachers, we can we have a really interesting role as an English teacher, whereas we can basically do any kind of project in our classroom. It can be science, it can be, you know, engineering, something like that. But as long as the mode of language that they're using in these projects is English, it's classified as an English lesson. You know, we don't need to be teaching them grammar and vocabulary in lists and structures, because while they're doing their research, they're going to be learning how to, you know, to read in English and to speak in English, because they're doing those skills and they're not, you know, without knowing that that's what they're doing. I guess it's like hiding it in there. So yeah, we have that really great opportunity as English teachers to be able to, you know, mold our topics into anything really that's going to be able to interest us. So yeah, keep that in mind as we watch this next video. And then after that, we will discuss, hopefully you can write in the chat box the answers to these questions as we're watching. All right, so let's get to it again.
We are doing some important work today to get ready for the mock trial. We're going to start by building our criteria for effective revolutions. The entire project is deciding whether or not your revolution was effective. So we got to figure out what that means. What does it mean for a revolution to be effective? This is my revolutions project, where students put a revolution on trial for its effectiveness in helping the citizens of the country. The driving question was, how can we as lawyers determine the effectiveness of a revolution? You said functional means clear decision making, a balance of power, reasonable laws and fair justice, and that your society is self-sustaining. What do you currently have? What do you need? Talk about it. The entry event for this project is one of my favorites. It's a week-long simulation where students are put into a society that is incredibly unfair and dysfunctional and are asked to create a fair and functional society.
For the salary thing, we decided to change that. The peasants will be paid $3.
So you're saying that you're taking taxes from everyone, right? $1,
Yeah.
but we earn $1, so like.
So they're put in different social classes where they have different jobs and roles and very different rates of pay and privileges. And then throughout the simulation, they then on their own have to create what they think is a fair and functional society. After we've learned kind of the basic framework of how revolutions work and why they start, they learn about the conditions, beliefs, and triggers that start revolutions.
The conditions were like, people are immigrants and they're like being thrown out of the US.
Mm-hmm. And they start to do some research into the revolution of their choice. So they chose a revolution that they were interested in, and I put them in groups, and then they start to get some background knowledge about that revolution. You might be more confused now than you were before you read it. That's okay. We're just trying to build our background knowledge and figure out what was going on in this revolution using these primary sources. 5 minutes of academic conversation, and go.
He was the general, so like he had a lot of power, right? And he was against Madero. And so what he did is he joined like Pancho Villa and them. and he used his power to overthrow the president and basically the whole government, right?
So they look into some secondary sources that kind of summarize the whole revolution, and then they start to get more in depth into some primary sources, so witness accounts, speeches by the revolutionary leaders, and that's before they know if they're defending or prosecuting the revolution. So it's kind of getting the whole picture of what happened before I assign them a side. Okay, you guys are going to be defending the Cuban Revolution and saying it did help the people. You guys are going to be prosecuting the Cuban Revolution and saying it did not help the people. As soon as I assign them a side in the revolution, they then know who their mock trial teams are going to be.
The revolution wasn't effective because it didn't make fair laws.
I just want you guys to take into consideration our nation was in poverty, and all the people that couldn't afford to support themselves have to work, and they weren't getting paid the amount they needed to buy food.
It says the slaves who came enter national territory, they got the act with them, so they were able to live freely.
Does that sound like a fair laws and government and people being benefited? No. If you're in civil war for 10 years?
No.
So as a team, they look through all of the evidence that they've found throughout their research, and they start to identify what are the strongest pieces of evidence that will support their side, and then they use that evidence to create their argument. And then they use that argument to begin to build their case. Che Guevara once said, "True revolutionaries are guided by feelings of great love." What do you think that quote means? What does this tell you about how he felt about revolutions and their leaders? Based on what you know about revolutions, do you agree with that quote? 2 minutes to silently read and write, go. So throughout the project, I focus a lot on the Common Core standards of reading and writing. The biggest writing standards for the 10th grade are around argumentation and their argumentative writing, so creating a strong argument that they can support with evidence. They do that in their timed writing that we do about midway through the project, and then also in the actual mock trials. So it's all about creating a strong argument that they can support with relevant evidence.
Your Honor, people of the jury, in 1959, the Cuban Revolution, led by Fidel Castro, overthrew President Batista and went on to change the history of Cuba.
As soon as they finished the timed writing, where I made sure that they understood the revolution and their side, I then showed them the structure of the trials. So we looked at a whole bunch of videos of trials from movies and some student mock trials from other schools, so they could see what do lawyers do, how do lawyers act, how do witnesses act when they're on the witness stand.
You were there, I assumed you saw many horrendous things. Am I correct to assume that?
They also interviewed some actual lawyers on FaceTime to talk about what do you do to prepare for a case, what do the different parts of a trial look like, and then I gave them an outline that showed the whole parts of the trial. From there, they then decided as a group who they thought their strongest lawyers would be and witnesses, and they decided on those roles on their own.
What differences do you see before and after the revolution?
Like before, we couldn't even get married without permission.
And then we started practicing. They practiced first just within their own team to get some feedback, and then we did some fishbowl practicing where they practiced for another team.
Your claims were clear, they're relevant, but you shouldn't argue with your lawyer because you guys are a team, you should act like one.
And the person who had their same role but on a different revolution gave them feedback using the rubric that they had created as a class. Court is now in session. We'll begin with the trial of the Haitian Revolution, in which we will be considering the case of, was the Haitian Revolution guilty or innocent of harming its people?
The Haitian Revolution is the only successful slave revolution in history. It's also the first black independent state.
And how would you say the conditions of the economy was after the revolution?
I felt that the economy is worsening because of the law.
So on the final presentation, they got up on the stage in our community room. The prosecution was on one side and the defense on the other. We had an audience of another class from our school and another teacher that helped me make up the jury. They started with their opening statements on each side. I then swore in the witnesses, and they began their questioning. So each side questioned their own witnesses, and then they had a cross-examination. And then they ended with the closing arguments for each team before the jury announced the verdict.
We're free, resilient. We have power for ourselves. We have rights.
One of the biggest benefits to having students learn about revolutions through a mock trial is that it forces them to see both sides of the issue. And I think that traditionally when you learn about something, there's always bias involved. But when they have to argue the other side or respond to arguments about the other side, they see that revolutions affect different people in different ways. So it kind of forces teenagers that don't often see other people's perspectives to see an issue from both sides and realize how complicated things are.
All right, so hopefully you guys were able to see that plan in action of an example. I would like to answer your questions as well. So this idea of a mock trial is the form of the project. So that's the great thing about project-based learning, is that you get to decide, what that project is going to look like at the end. So we'll get into a little bit more about how you do the planning when we get into it, but it could be like a poem, it could be a debate, so all of these different methods are projects. And so the criteria of assessing the project, great question. I have a slide for answering it as well. Okay, yeah, it does look like a role play. So there are definitely role-playing components to it. Good eye. Let's see if we can answer these questions. Okay, so the students worked with each other, and they worked with, actually, did you hear them in the video? They said that they did some Zoom interviews with some real lawyers and asking them, how do you set up this court case? And they were able to get advice from real lawyers, and that was the connection that was outside of the classroom. The idea was to do a mock trial about revolutions. The students had different roles. Some were the workers, some were the leaders of government, so they were able to see those different perspectives. They discovered it was a good situation for some people and it was a bad situation for some other people. And they communicated that information through that trial. So that was the project. And the skills that were gained were all of those ones: the collaboration, public speaking, and project management. They did research, they were reading articles, they were looking up information online. And these are all skills that students need when they're leaving the classroom, right? And they're interested in it. And they seem that they learn more about it than if they were to have just read one article, for example. How did they assess their learning to help others on their journey? I guess they had the judges, right? So it was the two teachers who were going to decide who had a stronger argument, right? Time limits, another great question. We can get into time limits as well. So time limits really depends on the project that you choose. So I'm going to give you guys some websites where it just gives you project after project after project. Like there are hundreds, literally hundreds of examples of projects that have already been created by other teachers, especially on this website called PBL Works, the one where I'm showing you all of these videos. And all you have to do is just facilitate it in your classroom. And the students, they're doing all of the work. And just remember in the first video, it was just the teacher has to be able to facilitate it and ask good questions and give hints and don't give the answers. They mentioned peer assessment. Yeah, so they were able to assess each other as well. And they're able to do that constantly, giving each other assessment throughout the whole process. Okay, we're going to skip along just because we're looking at the time here. So doing projects versus project-based learning, you can see up at the top, the traditional unit is very mono-layered, but then with project-based, you're layering these activities, the activities, workshop, lectures, homework, research, labs, and then you have the benchmark, and then you have the reflection, and then you go to this other set, another benchmark reflection. So it's this whole process before you can get to this culminating event and presentations. So now I'm going to try to show you guys how is project-based learning different from project-based service learning? And the component is this here with these organizations. You don't have to contact the United Nations, but just to show you that all of these organizations have a humanitarian component. So it's connecting your students to their community through a humanitarian cause. So it gives them that kind of idea of to be of service to others, to help others. So it's just adding this other requirement onto this project-based learning, which is why I tried to describe project-based first to get you guys to be able to understand that if it was the first time. So now here we go, next part. Project-based learning is important because project-based service learning is important because service learning is teaching and learning a strategy that integrates meaningful community service with instruction and reflection to enrich the learning experience, okay? There are many different types of service learning, community service projects, and reasons why it's important. So I'll let you guys read that for yourselves. Just basically saying that with all of the components that project-based learning brings in can help, and also for the service learning, that it adds that sense of purpose with that humanitarian component of being able to help your community, which is a really amazing thing to be able to do. And you feel so good after doing that. So when you guys are thinking about some different service learning community projects, you can think about what is relevant in your community. What does your community need right now? And then think about how you and your students can help that. So I would recommend reaching out to some NGOs and nonprofits in your community, have a look at their themes or the missions of each organization, see which one aligns to your feeling and your purpose and your belief. Because if you don't have that match, you're not going to be all into it, right? Find an organization that speaks to you. And I have this jam board that I don't think that, let me try to get it here, Jamboard. And I will put this Jamboard, I guess we can do it here, so I don't have to waste the time. You can write in the chat box some different themes that would speak to you or different organizations or causes that you think that your community needs right now. And now we're going to watch a video from our very special guest is Sam. When I was doing my virtual English language teaching in the Philippines, so just virtually, didn't go, but I had a great opportunity to have an amazing class of such great hard workers, and we were able to have service learning, an assessment of project-based service learning for the students. And I had such amazing assessments, like these pre-service teachers, they really knocked my socks off. And I wanted to show you an example from Sam Karimpong because hers really, really blew me away. And so she has recorded herself with this video to explain a little bit more about it. So Sasha, can you put the video on for us, please?
Greetings to all the participants and esteemed individuals in this lecture. In this part of the session, I will be sharing with you the project-based service learning plan that I created entitled Make Our Voices Heard 2022 Elections Primer. But before I delve into that, let me introduce myself first. My name is Samantha Louise Karimpong, but please call me Sam. I am 22 years old, and I'm a fourth-year Bachelor in English Education student at the Philippine Normal University. As an individual, I am more of an indoor person, so when I'm not studying, I spend most of my time binge-watching movies and TV series and reading a young adult novel. Like most Filipinos, I love singing whenever and wherever possible. As a pre-service English teacher, I am interested about how I could create opportunities for the students to learn more about the current local and national issues or events, even if they are in an English class. This interest is where my project-based service learning plan stemmed from. During the time of planning this project, it was around 6 months before the filing of candidacy for the 2022 Philippine national elections, and fake news surrounding politics and the election is quite rampant in social media in our country. Considering this, I thought about how I could include the junior high school students in making an informed decision for the said election and choosing the right candidates for the public positions despite their ineligibility to vote. I believe that they should be given a voice about choosing the next leaders of our country and their community, as it would have a great effect on their future. Hence, this became the reasons why I created the project Make Our Voices Heard 2022 Elections Primer. For this project, students will learn first about the Philippine elections system and the duties and responsibilities of the citizens as voters. In this part, there will be a discussion about imperative sentences so that they could create an infographic detailing the process of the elections and the instructions for the election day. After that, they would conduct a panel interview with the local government candidates. But before that, they will be taught first about how to write effective interview questions and interviewing etiquettes. That discussion would help them gather valuable information about the platforms and the stand of the mayoral candidates on local and national issues. In this part, I narrowed it down to the mayoral position, as news media already covers the much higher positions, and I think that this would give them the chance to become more concerned of their locality. Using the data from the panel interview, they would create an infographic per mayoral candidate, showing their platforms and stand on local and national issues, which will be shared on the Facebook page that they launched. As they create these infographics, they are expected to use vocabulary words related to politics. With those, you can see how I incorporated the English lessons to the outputs that they have to accomplish as they conduct the project. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to conduct the project yet, as I am still finishing my undergraduate degree. But I am hoping to conduct this project by the 2025 Philippine national elections, as I can see that the project would remain relevant as long as there will be elections. I hope that you learned something from this project, and I hope that you could perform this in your respective classes as well. Maybe you could share how this project could be improved, so please let me know. Thank you very much for listening. Дуже дякую.
Yes, Sam, that was amazing. Do you want to, Sam, are you with us now and you wanted to say something? Are we having some issues with Sam being able to join in? Let me see. Okay, she's having some problems with her microphone. Are we able to get her to be allowed to turn on her? Hello? Oh, there you are. Hey, Sam.
Hello, ma'am. Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you. And I think that everyone has been really inspired by your project. So thank you so much for joining us and for that lovely video.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And I hope everyone get a good idea from that video. And I'm hoping that everyone in Ukraine right now would have a better um,
Oh, sorry. I think that maybe we lost Sam, but it's very late in the Philippines right now. Oh, there you are.
again, thank you very much for having me, and I hope that you got some ideas from that plan, a project plan that I created. And I am hoping that everyone in Ukraine right now would have a better situation, knowing that you are undergoing a terrible situation right now. So I am hoping that in the soonest time possible, everyone would have a better situation there. So thank you very much for having me, and thank you for inviting me as well, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam. That was very sweet, very thoughtful words, and I'm sure that everyone appreciates hearing about that. Thank you. Thank you for staying up late for us. Okay. Yeah, so in order to incorporate the project-based service learning into our classrooms, we need to follow this 5-step process, which is to discover, learn, implement, reflect, and then share. So when we're planning for PBSL, we have to make sure that we have benchmarks, and you get to decide what kind of timing that is going to be relevant for your class. So if you have 1 week sessions with your students, if you're doing this over a semester, if you want to do it for 1 month, for example, it's really, you're able to tailor it in a way that it's going to be suitable for you. So the different kinds of benchmarks that will allow you to understand if your students are following along, instead of just, handing them some papers and be like, here you go, finish. So you have to make sure that they're following along the way. And the way that you can do that is through quizzes, essays, comparing and contrasting, looking at different perspectives, add technology. Maybe you want to have them incorporate some music or some videos. You can also allow them to think how these issues and these themes are showing up today. So have some look in the news. What is, some relevant information that you're going to be able to see these issues from? Relevant media, surveys. They can conduct their own surveys with whichever group that they're going to be working with. You can pair them up in special interest groups, and you can have distribution through seminars, graphic organizers, and infographics. Also, I'm very conscious of your time. I know that we're almost running out, so I'm just going to go through these last bits very quickly. So backwards design and calendaring. Here are a couple examples of how you would scaffold the benchmarks and what that communicates into what kind of a deliverable that is for on the first one here on the left. And then finally, this one calendaring for service learning project timeline on the right. So you can see for the different months, I got to point this way, doing the research of their ideas, the NGOs, learning the vocabulary. The next month they choose the project. So, they're able to take things step by step. You don't have to rush and say, finish, in the next hour. You can try it in your classroom, and it would be great if on the TESOL Ukraine website, on the Facebook group, if you wanted to show us that you're interested in PBL and you wanted to implement it in the classroom. I think that would be great if you were able to show us how you guys are able to do it in your classroom. I follow, and I would love to hear about it. Or if anyone wants to reach out to me to get some more information about it, I'm very happy to make time for that. Finally, the question about the checklist and the rubric. You get everything on PBL Works. They have everything for you. They have critical thinking for students. This is a very elementary level. I can explain why we are doing the project, very basic. And how do you feel about it? So that would be good for students who have a very low level of English, no matter what their age is, because you can have these pictures that can help you. And then this is the checklist. So when you are finished with the rubric, you can go through and you can really see, like, did we do this well? Does the project meet this criteria? Does it cover the key knowledge, understanding, and successful skills? Did it have a challenging problem or a question? Was there sustained inquiry, et cetera, et cetera? And as mentioned before, you don't have to do PBSL all year round. You be realistic about it. And Another great thing is, like, number one, you can get all of these resources already of all of these ideas that are already online from teachers who have done them before. And then once you do it in your classroom, for the one time, you're going to get better and better at it every time that you replicate it. So that's the sustainable component, that you don't have to do all of this work. Just like when you're planning the curriculum, you don't have to do it all one time and then that's it. It doesn't go anywhere. You can do it again over and over and, you know, continue to get better at it. And as teachers, we're using our creativity and it makes us more focused and more motivated and more interested, right? So there's another free webinar about PBL if you are very, very interested, through this link if you just type in PBL on blended education, you're able to access that information. And also, I have to give a little bit of promo to my America House team. If you are interested or you know anyone is, or you can tell your students as well, we have this wonderful opportunity for anyone from any country to become a camp changemaker. So maybe you can require this for your students as their project, you know, to join this club. So it's going to be a special focus on Ukraine, and the students or the participants will explore the most pressing issues that the world faces today, how individuals and organized initiatives can work for a better future. Okay. And then also we have a really great website on our website. You can sign up for our e-learning library. So there are many books that are available in English for free. All you have to do is sign up, and you just go to America. I'll type it in the chat box. If you just do Google search for America House Kyiv, then you will be able to see, okay, Sasha has it up here. He can show you how to do it. And yes, and Lottie, oh, wow, I have so much help. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and so we can show you about the Overdrive Library. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And this is such a great resource. I am reading books from this right now, and you know, you don't have to pay for them, and you just return them electronically, completely free. Really great, like, new books. So they update it very often, and you can see that it has an app as well. You can read it on your computer, or you can read it from your phone. So that's all I have. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this 1-hour session webinar on PBL, PBSL. It's something that I feel very passionate about, and I think that the impact that it creates is very meaningful and important, and because you're connecting with people outside and your students, and we have this great opportunity as teachers to be able to facilitate projects like this. So let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's make it happen. And I hope that I will see you guys for my next presentation next week on Thursday. And I'm going to be talking about how to facilitate conversation classes and career development classes for your students. So I hope to see you there. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening, and have a great weekend, have a great week, and hopefully see you next time. Bye. Thank you.